The cold finds you before you even open your eyes. It seeps through the wool wrapped around your body. It settles into the damp earth beneath you. It presses against your face like a hand made of ice. You are not dreaming. You are awake now, though you wish you weren't. The fire has died down to embers, and the temperature inside this small cottage has dropped enough that your breath fogs the air in front of you. This is England. The year is 1348. It is the middle of February, and the sun set nearly 6 hours ago. You have at least 5 more hours until dawn, and the night is not halfway finished with you yet. You are a peasant farmer. You own almost nothing. The walls around you are made of wattle and daub woven sticks packed with mud, dung, and straw. The roof is thatched, thick enough to keep out rain, but not thick enough to trap much warmth. The floor beneath you is packed earth, covered in old rushes that smell faintly of rot. There is one door, no glass, in the single window opening. Only a wooden shutter that does little against the wind. This is not a home designed for comfort. It is designed for survival, and survival in this world is never guaranteed. If you're watching this, take a moment to like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And leave a comment, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Now, let us continue. You sit up slowly. Your joints ache. Your fingers are stiff. The cold has a way of settling into the body when you sleep, slowing the blood, tightening the muscles. You learned long ago that sleeping through the night without waking is a luxury. Most nights, you wake 2 or 3 times to tend the fire. Tonight, you slept too long. The embers are barely glowing. This is your first mistake. And in this world, mistakes cost warmth. Warmth costs fuel. Fuel costs labor. And labor, in the dead of winter, is something you cannot easily replace. You crawl toward the hearth. The fire is at the center of the room, not against a wall. There is no chimney. Those are for wealthier homes, manor houses, churches. Here, the smoke simply rises and drifts toward a hole in the roof, escaping slowly, filling the upper half of the room with a haze that stings your eyes and coats your lungs. This smoke is dangerous. It will shorten your life by years if you survive long enough to grow old. But it is also necessary. The smoke keeps insects away. It preserves meat hung in the rafters. And most importantly, where there is smoke, there is fire. And where there is fire, there is life. You reach for the small pile of kindling near the hearth. Dry sticks, broken thin, a handful of straw. You blow gently on the embers, coaxing them back to life. The glow brightens. You add the straw first, then the smallest sticks. You do not rush. Rushing smothers the flame. You have done this 1,000 times. Your mother taught you. Her mother taught her. This knowledge is older than memory. The fire catches. A small flame rises, and you feel its warmth against your face like a blessing. Now you add larger fuel. A split log, dry enough to burn, but not so dry it will consume too quickly. Firewood, in winter, is precious. You gathered it in autumn, stacked it against the outside wall of the cottage, covered it with old thatch to keep the rain off. Even so, some of it is damp. Damp wood smokes more and burns less. It hisses and spits, but it is what you have. The room begins to warm, but only near the fire. 2 feet away, the air is cold. 4 feet away, it is freezing. At the edges of the room, near the walls, the temperature is barely above the air outside. This is something modern people rarely understand. A medieval fire does not heat a room the way a furnace does. It heats you, your body, your face, your hands. You must stay close. You must rotate, warming one side and then the other. You must share space with others, family, animals, because shared body heat is the difference between discomfort and death. Tonight, you are alone. Your wife died in childbirth 2 winters ago. Your children live with your brother's family in the next village. You chose to stay here, to work the land, to keep the tenancy. The Lord requires labor, and you provide it. In exchange, you are allowed to live. This is the arrangement. But being alone means no shared warmth, no one to tend the fire while you sleep. No animals inside. Tonight the pig was slaughtered in November. The chickens are in a small attached coop, too far to share heat with you directly. You wrap yourself tighter in your cloak. It is wool, thick and coarse, never washed because washing removes the natural oils that repel water. It smells of smoke, sweat, and lanolin. You do not notice the smell. You have never known anything else. Let us talk about what you are wearing. This matters more than you might think. Against your skin, you wear a linen shirt, thin, loose, extending to your knees. Linen breathes. It wicks moisture away from your body. This is important because sweat, even in winter, can kill you. If your innermost layer becomes wet and stays wet, it will steal heat from your body faster than cold air alone. Over the shirt, you wear a wool tunic. Wool is remarkable. Even when damp, it retains warmth. It insulates by trapping air between its fibers, creating a barrier against the cold. You do not know the science of this. You only know that wool keeps you alive. Over the tunic, you wear another layer, a thicker wool garment, almost like a coat. And over everything, the cloak. On your legs, wool hose, held up by ties at the waist. On your feet, leather shoes stuffed with straw for insulation. The straw compresses over time and must be replaced, but tonight it is fresh enough. On your head, a wool cap. This is essential. The head loses heat faster than any other part of the body. Without a cap, you would wake with a headache, with stiffness in your neck, with the sluggish confusion that comes when your core temperature drops even slightly. You are not warm, but you are warm enough. There is a difference. Your stomach tightens. You ate earlier a thin pottage of barley, onions, and a few scraps of salted pork. It was not much. Winter food is never much. The harvest was poor this year, and the Lord took his share regardless. What remains must last until spring, until the first greens push through the soil, until the hens begin laying again. Hunger in winter is constant. It is not the sharp, urgent hunger of missed meals. It is a slow, grinding emptiness that sits in your belly and never quite leaves. Your body burns fuel to stay warm, and food is that fuel. Less food means less heat. Less heat means slower movement, slower thinking, deeper sleep from which you might not wake. You reach for the small pot near the fire, still faintly warm from earlier. You drink the remaining broth. It is barely more than water flavored with barley and salt, but it spreads warmth through your chest. You feel your fingers loosen slightly. Your shoulders drop. This is survival, not comfort. Survival. Outside, the wind rises. You hear it first in the thatch above a low whisper that builds to a moan. Then you feel it. Cold air pushes through gaps in the walls, through the shutter, through the edges of the door. The fire flickers and leans. Smoke swirls unpredictably, stinging your eyes. You rise and move to the door. There is a heavy wool blanket hung across it, an extra layer against drafts. You adjust it, pressing it tighter against the frame. The wind finds other ways, and it always does, but every gap you close is heat you keep. This is the constant battle of winter survival. Heat escapes. Cold invades. You must fight it with everything you have. Fuel, fabric, clay, dung, straw. Your own body pressed against openings you cannot otherwise seal. The cottage groans. The wooden beams creak. You have lived in this home your entire life, and you know its sounds. This is not the sound of collapse. It is the sound of endurance. The structure flexing but holding. You return to the fire. Now comes the hardest part of the night. The hours before dawn. You know from experience that this is when the cold is most dangerous. The fire burns lowest. The body is weakest. The will to stay awake fades. You have heard stories everyone has of people found frozen in their beds, the fire dead, the body stiff. It does not take extreme cold. It only takes carelessness. A fire left untended, a blanket kicked aside in sleep. A body too exhausted to wake when it should. You force yourself to stay alert. You add another log to the fire. You rub your hands together, then hold them toward the flames. You stand, stretch, walk 3 steps to the wall and 3 steps back. Movement generates heat. Stillness invites death. The wind outside grows louder. You hear something else now, a branch cracking somewhere in the darkness. An animal moving through the underbrush. Perhaps a fox, a wolf. You do not fear wolves the way stories suggest. They rarely attack humans, but they take livestock. They take chickens. They take what little you have. You think of your chickens in their coop. They are huddled together, sharing warmth, surviving on instinct older than humanity itself. Birds fluff their feathers to trap air. They tuck their heads beneath their wings. They slow their hearts, lower their body temperature, enter a state between sleep and death. In the morning, they will wake. Most of them, the weak ones, the old ones, sometimes do not. You are not so different. The hours pass. You drift in and out of a shallow sleep, never fully unconscious, never fully awake. Each time you stir, you check the fire. Each time, it is burned lower. The pile of wood near the hearth shrinks. By morning, it will be nearly gone. Tomorrow, you will need to bring more from the stack outside. But that is tomorrow's problem. Tonight's problem is simpler. Survive until dawn. Around what you guess is the 4th hour after midnight, you make your second mistake. You fall into a deeper sleep than you intended. Your body, exhausted from days of labor and nights of broken rest, simply gives in. You do not feel the cold creeping closer. You do not notice the fire dying. You do not hear the wind shifting, pushing more cold air through the cracks. You dream of summer. Warm sun on your face. The smell of fresh bread. Your wife laughing at something you said. Her hand on your arm. The dream is so vivid, so warm, that you do not want to leave it. This is how the cold kills. It seduces. It offers rest, comfort, peace. It whispers that everything is fine, that you can sleep just a little longer, that the fire will tend itself. You wake with a gasp. Something is wrong. You know it before you understand why. Your body has learned to recognize danger even when your mind is slow. You sit up too fast, and dizziness washes over you. Your muscles are stiff. Your fingers barely move. The fire is dead, not embers. Dead. Gray ash. No glow. No warmth. The room is cold. Not merely uncomfortable, dangerous. Your breath comes in thick clouds. The water in the clay pot near the hearth has a skin of ice across its surface. How long were you asleep? An hour? 2? You cannot know. There is no clock, no candle marked with hours. Only the darkness and the cold and the certain knowledge that you are in trouble. You scramble toward the hearth. Your hands shake as you reach for kindling. But the kindling is low. You burn through most of it already. You have a few sticks, a little straw, nothing more. You cannot start a fire from nothing. You do not have flint and steel of good quality. Those are expensive. What you have is a fire-starting kit your father made. A hand drill, a fireboard, a nest of dry tinder. But starting a fire this way takes time. It takes effort. It takes warmth in your hands that you do not have. You curse under your breath. Not loudly cursing is a sin. And even now, even alone, you half believe that God is watching. But the word escapes anyway. You wrap your cloak tighter. You breathe into your hands, trying to warm them enough to work the drill. Your fingers are clumsy, uncooperative. The first attempt produces nothing. The second, a faint wisp of smoke that dies immediately. The cold presses closer. On the fourth attempt, something catches. A small ember forms in the fireboard. You transfer it to the tinder nest with exaggerated care, hands trembling. You blow on it gently. Too hard will scatter it. Too soft will let it die. The ember glows brighter. A thin line of smoke rises, and then, finally, a flame. You nearly weep with relief. You do not, because tears would freeze on your cheeks. But the emotion is there, pressing against the inside of your chest like a living thing. You feed the flame carefully. Straw first, then the smallest sticks, then larger ones. You ignore the wood you were saving, the dry pieces meant to last. You need heat now, and you need it fast. The fire grows. The room begins to warm. You hold your hands so close to the flames that your skin reddens and stings. You do not care. Pain means life. Pain means you are still here. Dawn comes slowly. The darkness outside shifts from black to gray. The wind dies down, exhausted from its long assault. Through the crack in the shutter, you see the first pale light spreading across the frozen landscape. You survived. The fire crackles beside you, strong now, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Your body aches, your head throbs, your stomach is empty, but you are alive. This is not victory. There is no victory in survival. Not really. There is only continuation. Another day of labor, another night of cold, another slow march towards spring, which may or may not come before your food runs out, before illness takes you, before the Lord demands labor you no longer have the strength to give. You stand slowly and walk to the door. You push aside the wool blanket and open it. The world outside is white. Frost covers everything, the ground, the trees, the thatched roofs of distant cottages. Your breath fogs and rises. The cold air bites your face, but it is different now. It is the cold of morning, not the cold of death. It is manageable. You step outside. Your feet crunch on frozen grass. You look east, toward the horizon, where the sun is beginning to rise, a pale disk, weak and distant, but present. You think about the night, about the mistake that nearly killed you, about the fire that died and the cold that crept in while you dreamed of summer. You think about how close you came to becoming one of those stories: the man found frozen, the fire dead, the body stiff. But you woke. You remembered. You survived. This was one night. One winter night in the Middle Ages, experienced by one ordinary person in one small cottage in one forgotten corner of England. Multiply this by millions of people across centuries, and you begin to understand something important. The past was not romantic. It was not an adventure. It was cold and dark and hungry, and survival required knowledge, vigilance, and luck in measures that most modern people cannot imagine. You have central heating. You have insulation. You have food in refrigerators and blankets made of synthetic fibers that retain heat better than anything a medieval peasant could dream of. You have all of this, and you take it for granted. The people who lived before did not have the luxury of taking anything for granted. Every night was a test. Every winter was a war. And the cold was always waiting. The sun rises higher. The frost begins to melt. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows. You turn back toward your cottage. There is work to do, wood to gather, animals to tend, a fire to keep burning. Tonight, you will do better. You will stay awake longer. You will keep the fire fed. You will survive again, because that is what you do. That is what everyone does, in every age, in every place. You survive, one night at a time. But what about the nights when survival isn't enough? What about the nights when something worse than cold comes knocking? That is a story for another time.